Hi everyone, Queeveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to look a little bit into the past and then a lot into the past. Starting by going back just a couple of days to the 20th of April. So this was Easter Sunday this year. Some of you may know that Easter Sunday varies a lot between different years. So Easter Sunday is a Christian holiday. The Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, and the Eastern Orthodox and Oriental Orthodox churches, they all celebrate Easter Sunday. But it ties back to another celebration in a different calendar. So if we move back into last month, in modern times, the date of Easter is calculated in a pretty similar way every year. So first off, you go to the March equinox. We don't really care about the March equinox. It's just the 21st of March. It was decided that the 21st of March would be used as the March equinox, even though it can vary a little bit with leap years and similar things. We'll need to go back a little bit to get the moon here, and we'll just move forward again there to the 21st, to the equinox, or the notional equinox. This is what is assumed to be the equinox. So here we are. This is the equinox, and we're looking for the first full moon after that equinox. So we're going to have to go forward quite a bit, because the moon has to go past noon, come all the way out the other side. So we're already well into April. Here we are. Let's say it is the 12th. We're already well into April here by the time we get to fully illuminated. Now there it is at 99.8%. And there it is at 99.7%. So of course the exact date where the full moon occurs can vary as well. The whole 29.5-day cycle doesn't line up very neatly with our days, and that is a big part of the problem. But here we are, the full moon. This is the first full moon after the equinox, and if we go forward to the first Sunday after that, it'll bring us to the 20th of April. So this works every year. It works the same every year, or at least since it's been codified into this one repeating thing. But that one repeating method leads to different dates every year. So here we are looking ahead to next year. We're going to go back to the notional equinox, even though it could be the 21st, or it could be the 22nd instead of the 21st. But here we are, 21st of March. We'll go forward to the first full moon, and there it is. We'll say it's the second. 99.7, we'll say it's the second, so we're not saying it's April 1st, so we'll say it's the second. And of course the dates do change a lot, but we're seeing this full moon a lot earlier in April, and the first Sunday after that was just the 5th of April instead of the 20th. So there's a big difference there. There's an even greater difference if we were to go back a year from this year. If we go back to 2024 here, and we'll do the same thing again. We'll come all the way back to the equinox. There we are, the 21st, which may or may not be the equinox. And there's the moon at 88.1% full. So we only need to go a few days into the future to get 99.9% there on the 25th. And that meant back in 2024, you got Easter Sunday on just the 31st. So even though there is one codified method to figure out when Easter is, you go with the equinox and then the first full moon and then the first Sunday after that. Because the lunar calendar doesn't match up with the solar calendar, it doesn't always produce the same date every year. Another problem on top of this is saying that the 21st is the equinox, even though it can vary with things like leap years, and also pinning down the date of the full moon to be, one side of the date or the other, whether or not it's actually 100%, or, if the moon is 100% crossing midnight, these kinds of things, that needs to be sort of simplified as well. If every church back in the 1500s tried to figure out what date Easter was themselves, they could end up celebrating it on different dates, and that gets even more complicated when you vary what year you're using. So we're going to head into the nighttime sky, but I'm going to bring up, there we are, we're pretty much, we're not quite on the full moon there for the 21st. We'll move forward to the full moon that we were getting, we'll move forward to the full moon that we're getting, that we got this year to herald it. Whenever I bring up this little window here, this little window that shows what dates we're looking at, This date and time here is the Gregorian calendar. This one here is the Julian calendar. So you can see that it's simply counting in days, basically, here. It's not broken up the way we normally break up the Gregorian calendar, although it would have been, the Julian calendar would have been. The Julian calendar gets its name from Julius Caesar. So Julius Caesar, way back in the year negative 46. Of course, it wouldn't have been negative 46 at the time. It was just it was its own year. There were other calendars before the Julian calendar, but Julius Caesar, back in the year 46, negative 46 by our current reckoning, made the change, said that the calendar was going to change and that it was going to be reckoned, with 365 days, that kind of thing. So in minus 45, this was the first year of the Julian calendar. And of course, things did get complicated after that. The Julian calendar didn't account for leap years in the same way. And of course, it started at a different time. But the Julian calendar was pretty much the most popular calendar. It was the calendar everyone was using, from minus 45 all the way through to 0 and then out the other side to 33. So the celebration of Easter Sunday is to do with the death and rebirth of Christ. And according to the records or the Bible, back in the year 33, not negative 33, but positive 33, we'll fix that. If the figure was born in year 0 and then died at the age of 33, it would have been 33, just around here. And according to the records back then, Christ died on the festival of Passover, or Pesach, which is a Jewish festival. And this is really where things get interesting, because the Hebrew calendar that measures out the Jewish festivals, it is a lunar calendar, which is why we have to relate it to the full moon, because the moon has a lot to do with when the festival of Pesach or Passover starts. So Passover runs, for a few dates basically, and it happens around the date of Easter. But because the Hebrew calendar could be used to find Passover, but the Christian church, the early Christian church, wanted its own way of figuring this out. So instead of tying it to the Jewish celebration of Passover, it got tied to the equinox and the full moon instead. But this still left the problem of different churches in different places possibly coming up with different dates for the full moon. Oh, that's a nice display of planets. So there we are, looking into the past, and we've got nice selection of planets there all in a row. Back for the year 33, as we can see there. So because different churches could still potentially end up celebrating the dates on the wrong dates, different dates for different churches in different parts of the world, the decision was made to sort of calculate when all of the Easters were going to occur for years and years in advance. And that was the Computus Paschalis or Paschalis. So it was called the Computus or the Paschalian, and it was a way of figuring out for hundreds of years when Easter was going to be. By measuring out the lunar calendar, by measuring out the solar calendar, you could put a date on when Easter was going to be. And the Computus was pretty much the difficult maths puzzle in the kind of Western world for quite a while, for hundreds of years. And we know it was hundreds of years because it wasn't until around the year 525 that the Dionysian Computus, the Dionysian Paschalian calendar, however you want to call it, it wasn't until the year 525 that was established. And that was the calendar that selected the year 0 that we now use, that decided to start the calendar with the birth of Christ and then move on from there. So that calendar was eventually sort of established, but there was still difficulties when it came to the Gregorian reform, when we took on this calendar. So the way of figuring out Easter had been set. The calculation for it for all of the churches had been done. But what calendar was getting used then led to disagreements, because if you're using the Julian day, you will have your March 21st on a different date to the Gregorian day, and the degree of drifting as you go through the year is different as well. So there ended up being a schism. Some churches wanted to use the Julian calendar, and some churches wanted to use the Gregorian calendar, and it's one of the big splits that still exists today. The Orthodox churches, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, they use the Julian calendar for figuring out when celebrations are. Nearly all of them still use the Gregorian calendar for, day-to-day activities, but for the religious holidays, they use the Julian calendar. And the other churches, the Roman Catholic Church, the Protestant sects, they use the Gregorian. So it is a complicated astronomical phenomenon. Lining up the solar calendar with the lunar calendar is a complicated thing, because of course the lunar calendar, it's not even really 29 and a half days. It's 29 and a half, 29.530689 kind of thing. It's not even just a half of a day. It's similar with our year, it's 365 days and a quarter, but it's not even exactly a quarter. So Easter falls on a different date every year. And on a given year, it's not too hard to calculate, but predicting when it will occur in the future, that became one of the most complicated math puzzles, the Computus or the Pascalian. And of course, we don't have to worry about it too much anymore. It's all been sorted out, but it does highlight some interesting things in the history of how we break up the year and how these calendars work. So even though Easter is a religious holiday, it has some secular interest in terms of how it relates to calendars, the lunar calendar, the solar calendar, and these astronomical motions, and how these astronomical motions had a real impact on people here on Earth while they were trying to figure out all of this stuff. So this is a topic that I find particularly interesting. I hope that you found it interesting as well. If you did, please do like this video. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel if you'd like to see more astronomy. You can also read some of this information on my website, queebeanscontent.ie. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.